Okay. So I'm feeling so excited to share this exploration with you guys. It's something that it felt kind of like an intuitive call to this particular theme. Sort of the beginning was maybe a few months ago, and then pieces have just sort of shown up throughout the thinking about it or the being with it. And I actually had a dream towards the end of maybe the last series, or maybe middle way through. I don't even know. Time is such a funny thing these days. Where I saw and felt us, a group, sounding together. So in a circle and back to back and feet to feet. So it was like our feet met, backs, feet, backs, and it was in the circle. And I could see how the resonance of the sound was kind of like moving out and in and up and through. And I was so excited because I really wanted to share this, teach this, explore this. And then it was like in some of that transition time between the depth of the dream and awaking, I felt the, oh, right, we can't be in a situation where we can touch as easily. And I'm not doing this live. But then there was some like magic kind of ripple that came through it that said that sound does feel resonance, that sound does touch, and that in the sounding, we are physically together, that sound has a way to really bridge time and space, particularly when we are with it very intentionally. And through sound, we can form points of connection. And so, I mean, of course, that's something that happens as we're in this continuum work and exploration. But it felt really important to me to bring some specific attention to some of that quality and more. So I'll get into the more. But first, I just wanted to name, that we are creatures of connection. Being human is, at least in some degree, some level, to be a creature of connection. And that, sound is one way that we can connect through space and time. It's one of the ways that we exchange with, it's one of the ways that actually we touch the world, is through our sound. It's one of the ways that we exchange with each other, whether that's, through speech or nonverbal sound. It's one of the ways we exchange with our planet, our world, and the cosmos, really. And so again, whether that's through voice and some of our intentional sound, how we are and how we choose to communicate using our voice and using our sound, or whether that's through just our body sounds, the nonverbal sounds. So whether it's a squeal in delight, a cry, a growl, a sigh, a tears, a cry, laughing, but all those sounds. And then there's the even quieter kind of subtler sounds, the vibrational sounds. So getting into things like our heartbeat and our breath sounds and the gurgles of our organ systems even. All of that is happening already. It's already sounding. It's already an aspect of communication and or interaction with the world around us, whether we're conscious of it or not. And sounding is movement, and it's a part of our life. It's a part of our living processes. If we are alive, we are sounding in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes maybe that's a heartbeat, maybe that's breath, maybe it's a whispered prayer, maybe it's singing. It's very intentional, thoughtful communication. It's non-intentional, non-thoughtful communication, but it's happening. And the one thing, so speaking of, we kind of touched on this a little bit too with Joyce in the opening there, that using the voice or choosing to use the voice to communicate is really just shaping of our breath and expression. And it's a shaping with the breath, but it's also assigning a particular meaning. So that's where the voice in our culture and the communication that happens through voice tends to be looked at maybe differently than some of the non-intentional ways that we already are communicating through sound. And so one of my invitations over this next stretch of time that we're going to have together over these next number of weeks, I'll actually give you a little homework assignment that you can either choose or not choose to do. And I'll offer you some questions at the end of class once we come back to kind of take into your week and beyond. But part of the invitation is going to be to start really kind of cultivating and bringing some conscious attention to, yes, our intentional sound. So looking at kind of where do I feel my voice and my system? What do I feel when I'm intentionally trying to communicate? But also, and I would say just as importantly, is our ordinary life sounds. So some of those sounds I mentioned, around like heartbeat and breath, and just noticing the different gurgles, the different movement, the more subtle sounds in our system. And part of this is just to get to know the sound of my being. What is the sound of my being? And to have some intentional intimacy with that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but first I wanted to just spend a tiny bit of time here with the intentional part of sound. Let's get a little sip of water here. So with intentional sound, kind of like the sounds we make in a dive, we're using our sounding and our attention to enter in, to kind of taste and open to our living organism and really engaging with that organism. And sound is one of the ways we can kind of get in, touch, see, move, dance, engage with our body being, whether that's this, the body being or planetary or cosmos. And so when we sound, there's a way that sounding brings consciousness to a certain area of the body that we're kind of directing our sound into. But it also really kind of, it also brings attention to that which the sound moves through. So through the throat and the larynx. And so sound it brings, like we said, it brings the consciousness to the body. Excuse me. But it also has the capability to physically change the matter through movement. So I know some of you have looked at the cymatics videos with me and are familiar with that concept, but essentially it's that sound when applied to matter changes the organizational structure, and it actually moves matter. And so being that our bodies, at least a portion of our bodies, are matter, sound has that possibility to engage, move, and help us actually shape some of the tissues of our being, moving towards some sol states of liquidity, states where there's more ease of movement. So sound can physically help us with that. And we'll be exploring more specifically some of that in some of the later classes in terms of how we can apply sound to specific areas of either pain, attention, or resistance, and playing with that application. So I also want to name with intentional sound the tongue. So for a lot of the sounds, certainly, well, the tongue's involved in all and everything because every part of us is involved in all and everything. But the tongue can get really kind of activated with certain sounds. And that's also an important part of intentional sounding, because as the tongue kind of comes alive and has more movement, more potential for movement, more freedom, then that translates down the totality of our spine and in through our being. So as we're sounding, particularly with those pieces where we're intentionally playing with and using the tongue, we're also having this opportunity, not just through the sound, but the physical movement of the tongue to enliven the body, to facilitate kind of wave movement, to wake up our spine, which translates into the movement and freedom of our whole being. Okay, so finally, this last piece that I want to touch on just for today is that I know that there are many in the world, and certainly not exclusively, but particularly many who are female-bodied, minorities, anybody who's in a challenging family dynamic or any relational power dynamic, that either people have experienced or are currently experiencing situations where they are being muted, silenced, minimized in their expression. And so this history that we hold in our bodies and the history in the collective can lead to trouble with expressing it all through not just verbal communication, but the sounds of our being, our life-giving, life-creating sound. And so I see this series and this exploration as a real kind of opportunity to be with our sound in a safe way and to let ourselves be curious about our sound in a way that's unrestrained, unedited. We'll direct it in certain patterns, but then we want to let it run and let it have some freedom and be in that place of exploration and curiosity and play. And to do this translates into those other places where we are using sound intentionally to express. And when we can heal within ourselves, whatever part of that we might carry within our own individual being, as we can heal that and offer more freedom in our place of sound within ourselves individually, then that also translates into what's possible for the whole. Because it's a collective shared experience. And I absolutely 100% without a doubt truly believe that when healing happens for one, it happens for all. And so part of my wanting to share this with you all is that to just add to that healing within ourselves, within myself, and within the world. So are there any thoughts, questions about anything that I've said so far? I know I talked a great deal, a bit. Yeah,